Hello and a very warm welcome to the Late Breaking F1 podcast presented by Harry Eade, Sam Sage and me, Ben Hocking, back with another midweek episode. Sam, I'm looking to change today. We're recording this on Tuesday, 12th of November. I would like to rechristen it the Day of Three Schedules.
I mean, the way the news kept rolling in, and I could see your low-level fury building whilst me and Harry...
There was nothing low-level about it. I was fuming.
straight through the wall. The Hulk is here. Me and Harry giggling from the balcony above you while it just got worse and worse. I can't believe the way they announced it. It was hilarious, the way it was just kind of another one. Fancy another one?
Fancy another one?
Of course you do.
Davina. That's the problem. Davina.
Yeah.
How many schedules did you have to do, Ben?
I think it might have ended up at 3.
Oh, the slugs are back.
Oh, producer Kirsty shaking her head. Time to move on.
That was excellent teamwork. I love that. Yes, there was a lot of news that came out today, some of which we will touch on today, some of which we won't touch on today, but don't you worry, we'll cover everything at some point, whether it's on Sunday's episode, a Patreon episode. Nothing gets past us. We just like to take our time with some of these things. We've got the news about Niels Wittich leaving as the FIA race director. We've got Alpine and Mercedes linking up from 2026 onwards. Some comments from Toto Wolff about Lewis Hamilton. But we're going to start with the Constructors Championship battle with 3 races to go in the season. A maximum of 147 points, if my maths is correct, for any constructor from now until the end of the year. And of course, that includes a sprint that we have in Qatar. 36 points separates McLaren in first, 593 points, back to Ferrari on 557. Red Bull technically in the fight as well. They're 49 points away from McLaren on 544. Sam, is this fight still alive? We asked the question about the Drivers' Championship. I think the three of us quite emphatically said it's a done deal. Is this one a done deal as well?
No, I really don't think it is at all. Red Bull, I'm going to have to rule out. Unfortunately, even though Max Verstappen is still on it, he's still, Jeremy Clarkson's come out this week and say he might be the best we've ever had in the sport, which is a bold claim, and maybe one we'll discuss. Famously close Dutch drivers. We might discuss that claim another time, but yes, he's come out and said that. As much as Max Verstappen is pulling his weight by, Howard on checks notes, leading the Drivers' Championship in a car that could be the third fastest at this point anyway in the season, his teammate, unfortunately, has dropped the ball. Sergio Perez his performance this season has meant that he's unable to realistically support Red Bull. And if he was as close to his teammate as all the other teammates were, Red Bull would still be leading this championship fight, and they'd be very much in the fight for taking the title home as well. So Red Bull are out of it, but Ferrari very much in the hunt, in the game. Ben, you said how many points are left at the start of the segment. Well over 100 points the gap in terms of what they need to gain over what's versus McLaren have in hand. So there's plenty of time to play with. If anything, they could still have a bit of a so-so weekend at Vegas, where I feel actually Ferrari won't be too strong, and then pick up the points again in Qatar and in Abu Dhabi, and they could still make the difference, I think, in those 2 Grand Prix. It only takes one poor Grand Prix. We've seen it from McLaren recently that this can happen. Piastri has been relatively off form. Norris, of course, battling alongside Max Verstappen in previous Grand Prix has meant that he has not been there or thereabouts regularly to take advantage of these points available to him. But because of that battle between those 2 lead drivers, Ferrari have had all the doors held open for them. This way, sir. Best table in the house. Please come and sit down. Enjoy yourself, as they're dying on points given to them by Red Bull and McLaren. McLaren's side has been on fantastic form for the most part. And even when they're not on good form, the 2 of them, apart from Brazil, are still scoring very strong points at almost every single Grand Prix. And the pair of them together are so consistently scoring. They're so close together many, many Grand Prix in a row, that it's still on. It's still on. I don't want to say it's on a knife edge because I don't think it's that close, but one Grand Prix could see the whole thing change. And that's exciting for the last 3 Grand Prix. We've still got a lot to play for.
Harry, do you think a Constructors' Championship battle is on the cards from now until the end of the year? And if so, how many teams are in it?
I'll say there are 3 in it. Max Verstappen is having to do this all by himself, and his back must be sore from carrying Sergio Perez around. But I'm trying to think of a time when we had such an interesting Constructors battle, know, I mean, there is technically mathematically a Drivers' Championship, but basically a Drivers' Championship that's already sewn up. And the Constructors is between 3 teams. Yes, I know, as I say, Red Bull, and you said, Sam, are really a man down. But it's just a very odd scenario to be in. But I'm quite looking forward to it. It'll make quite a fascinating final few races, I think, because now that Lando's effectively out of the Drivers' Championship, McLaren, I think, are going to turn all their focus to securing the Constructors. But yeah, Ferrari aren't far behind, and Red Bull, because there are so many drivers now involved in this, technically 6, it only takes one team or two teams or 2 drivers to be like concentrating on each other too much that Red Bull could sneak back into it with a Verstappen victory or something like that. So I won't count them out. It's going to be very difficult for them, but yeah, I'll say it's all 3 going into this final few races. I think it's going to be a very interesting watch. And Ferrari, I'll be intrigued to see what Ferrari's pace is like in Las Vegas. I think that really depends on where their charge lies. If it's Mexico, Mexico and COTA level, then game on. If it's Brazil level, which was difficult to judge because of the weather and stuff, but either way, they weren't that quick. If it's that level,
sprint didn't look great, did it?
But no, exactly, it's sprint didn't look great in the dry. So if it's that level, then it's going to be trickier. But if they're up there with the same performance they had in Mexico and COTA, then yeah, it could be fascinating to watch.
I guess an aside question from that. Do you think, and you made the point of how it's very rare that we have a Constructors' Championship battle this late in the year when we don't have a Drivers' Championship battle. From a pure ratings perspective, the average fan, do you think the interest will still be there?
I think naturally it won't be as much as a Drivers' Championship battle, but F1 can probably do a relatively good job of hyping this up a bit. And I think a lot of fans understand that Constructors' Championship is important to teams. I think without now that there isn't that, Drivers' Battle, they can, focus all of their marketing efforts into promoting this Constructors fight, because I'd be very surprised if it went into the final race and all, F1 and media outlets were trying to hype up a Drivers' Championship battle. I'll be furious if they do, because come on. But yeah, they can turn their attention into hyping that up. But I think given the sort of high profile teams that are involved and high profile drivers, I think most fans will be engaged with this.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think it's still alive for 2 teams. I don't think it's alive for 3, unfortunately. Brazil was really, it was a kick in the teeth for both Ferrari and Red Bull, because McLaren, at least in the main Grand Prix, scored a grand total of 12 points, which actually matches their worst race of the season in terms of points haul with the first race of the year, Bahrain. And how did Ferrari and Red Bull respond? Well, Ferrari actually ended up with fewer points, because while Charles Leclerc was 5th with 10 points, Carlos Sainz didn't have anything. If it weren't for the Canadian Grand Prix, where of course they both didn't score, that would be their worst result of the year. And from Red Bull's perspective, Verstappen delivered what we might refer to as a generational performance. We, on our last episode, in our final segment on Sunday, we went through our top 5 wet weather races of all time. Verstappen at Brazil, last time out, was on both of your lists, and he was a consideration for mine as well. So we all agree that we witnessed something incredibly special, and yet the overall result was they only made up 14 points on McLaren because only one of their 2 drivers was scoring. And I think, let's say we've got 3 races to go, and we have almost a repeat of Brazil in all 3 races. It's incredibly unlikely. But let's say, for example, McLaren deliver 3 worst races of the season, and Verstappen delivers 3 generational performances, and we have 3 crazy weather, crazy situation race like Brazil. The chance of one of those 3 things happening is incredibly slim. The chance of all of them happening is essentially none. And even with all of that, that still wouldn't be enough for Red Bull. There'd still be a few points shy of the gap that they need to make up. So based on that, I don't think Red Bull are in the fight. Ferrari, though, I think they could be. And I think a lot is going to depend on Vegas. Obviously, Vegas is going to be the outlier, you would probably say, in terms of performance of those last three. Qatar and Abu Dhabi might be a bit more similar, but I'm intrigued to see how it goes. Sam, if we're looking at Ferrari and McLaren, I guess, just exclusively now, what do you need to see from them from the rest of the year? What does the strategy need to look like from both teams?
For the most part, Norris, I think, can continue delivering. If he's not going to focus on Max Verstappen, he no longer needs to ensure that he outright beats him. He has his battles on track. He doesn't need to risk anything. He doesn't need to go toe-to-toe with Max Verstappen and risk a DNF, risk running wide and maybe colliding with a wall or spinning out. Those risks can boil down from him, and he can deliver what is just considered a very good performance from Lando Norris at this point. It's more Oscar Piastri at this point that needs to step back up. We saw from the Hungary period of the season through to pretty much just after the summer break, when we got to Singapore, Piastri was pretty much one of the top point scorers, if not the top point scorer for many of those Grand Prix. Picked up his first outright win, of course, won sprints. He was so ahead of the game, it felt like. And since Singapore, he's been lackluster in comparison to his teammate. Well, these last three Grand Prix, we need to see Piastri matching Norris. It doesn't mean going outright beating him, but right there. And we've said it before, if Norris is second, Piastri needs to be third. If Norris is fifth, I expect Piastri to be sixth. If that's how good the car is, he needs to be backing his teammate right up. On the flip side from McLaren, if Piastri is 10 seconds clear winning a Grand Prix and Norris is fighting for second place and gets it, no more Papa rules now. No. The championship's gone. The Drivers' Championship is gone. The moment's done. Even if they swap a position, it's not really going to mean anything. No silly games, because they got so lucky in Brazil. There were so many moments in Brazil, their team orders in the sprint, where they could have got it wrong and it will cost them so dearly. And they were so lucky not to. That can still happen at tracks like Vegas, where walls are right next to the cars constantly, or safety cars might come out at unoptimal times, or a yellow flag might come out at the wrong time for them. It could cost them dearly. If Piastri's leading, let him lead. Let him walk away with it. Let him go and get victories. And Norris, he's good enough. He can do the work to finish second place. McLaren need to make sure their drivers are 1-2 in every race if they can be, no matter what that order actually is. For Ferrari, the deal is simple. Each one of your drivers should be beating one of the other drivers at a minimum. And that's how you conquer them. If Norris is in second, Leclerc needs to be first. If Piastri is fourth, stop laughing at me, you child.
Get that in the book.
If Piastri is in fourth, Sainz needs to be third. It is as simple as that. It's each driver has to go toe-to-toe with them and outscore the other one. In an ideal world, of course, both drivers will outscore the other two drivers. That's as simple as it is. Ferrari's target should be beating McLaren in every race.
Harry, how do the two teams approach these last few Grand Prix? Obviously, McLaren, in both championships, really have for so long this season been the hunters, right? They've been the ones chasing. Now they're the ones protecting a lead. Does that change anything?
It does, because not because they're protecting the lead, but I think, as Sam mentioned, they don't need no more Papa rules now. They don't need. They've been shooting themselves in the foot slightly with those sorts of games. And you're right with Piastri. It wasn't great in Brazil, but I'd put that down to an anomaly versus a drop in form. So I'm not too worried about him. But it doesn't matter which way around they are, as long as they are scoring 1-2s or 1-3s and beating Ferrari. I think, as you said, Sam, I know it's the obvious thing to say, but as long as they're outscoring Ferrari each race, it doesn't have to be 1-2s. The only thing they will watch out for is obviously Verstappen in the Red Bull. But I don't think I think their approach will change, but that's just because of the fact that the drivers' fight is done now. They don't need to worry about prioritising Norris over Piastri, because situations like the sprint in Brazil, they could have lost out on not only on Norris gaining points over Verstappen, they could have lost out on gaining points on their rivals in the constructors in that race if they got left, if they didn't get quite so lucky in that race. So they need to not do that. I don't think they will now because they don't need to. So yeah, I think it's a case of just use the speed of that car and go quickly and don't worry about what the others are doing, because I think McLaren are guilty of worrying about what everyone else is doing and just not what they're doing. So do that, McLaren.
No being fast but silly. That's the key.
Goodness me, glad that's made it back.
And it's still relevant, weirdly. At least how you intended it, maybe not the second version.
No, just the first version. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, they need to avoid errors. Like, it boils down to that, simply put. We've had Lawson and the incident that happened at Brazil for Piastri. We've had Q1 and SQ1 eliminations for Piastri, which if I had to point out one thing that really can't happen between now and the end of the year, that's probably it. It's just ensuring that Piastri is making it through to Q3 as he has done for the majority of this season and avoiding those early qualifying eliminations. Of course, Lando Norris has had some poor starts. He ran off the road in Brazil as well. It's just avoiding those errors because they have got that buffer and they should have a quick car from now until the end of the year. I mean, they've had, in the last 17 Grand Prix, one of their two drivers has been second or better in 14 of them. That's the consistency they need. The problem for McLaren recently is 2 of the last 3 races, they haven't done it. They just need to ensure that consistency returns. From Ferrari's perspective, I am intrigued because I think a lot of their strategy is going to ride on what their pace is like at Vegas. Because if they turn up at Vegas and it's similar to Mexico and the US where they seem to have an advantage, then suddenly I think they need to take advantage of that and maybe chip into that within the 3, because they only need to outscore McLaren by about 13 points per race weekend. If they can have a car advantage, I think they can trust that their lineup plus the car plus their strategy, which has been fairly good this year, put that all together and they don't need to make up all of that points gap at Vegas. So I think they can maybe play it a bit safer. If they turn up at Vegas and their performance is like level or slightly behind McLaren, as it maybe was in Brazil, then I think they start to play it riskier, both in terms of strategy and in terms of wheel-to-wheel racing, because why not go for it if you're Ferrari at this stage? I would much rather Ferrari, if they have a chance, going for the championship with some risky strategy plays at risk of falling to third. Who cares if they fall to third? Like, worst case scenario, Ferrari, you go for the championship, you drop to third, and you get some extra wind tunnel time. Great. I would not like a situation at all where they play it safe and just try and hold off Red Bull. That is not, as a spectator, as a competitor, I don't want to see that at all. So if they do turn up at Vegas and the pace does seem comparable, or again, if they are slightly behind, make some riskier calls. Go with a different starting tyre. Use one of your drivers as a decoy. Play to the fact that you would be behind and need to make up that gap. If you do the same thing as McLaren, you're probably not going to get there. So I would just implore Ferrari to play it risky if they're in that spot. From Red Bull's perspective as well, like I just wanted to say with them, they can't really have too much of a strategy because their strategy is just Verstappen do what Verstappen does and Perez try to do what Perez hasn't done. But you can't really say anything to Sergio Perez at this point, right? Like, you can't say, have you considered being faster and getting better position? Like, you can't say that.
You can have a Kit Kat. You can have a Kit Kat.
Well, he'd take a break, maybe. I don't know.
Take a very long career break.
The irony is it might have bought him a year, but maybe that's a discussion for another day. Right, we're going to take our first break on this episode. On the other side, we've got some comments from Toto Wolff about departing driver Lewis Hamilton. Welcome back, everyone. Toto Wolff has revealed he did not try to persuade Lewis Hamilton to remain at Mercedes instead of switching to Ferrari. Wolff says Hamilton's decision to defect to another team is actually a positive, as it means he does not need to have an awkward discussion where he tells him he is no longer needed. This is what he had to say. I absolutely had it on my radar that Lewis would go. I just couldn't understand why he'd changed to another team before we knew if we were going to be competitive. It also didn't give me any time to react. I possibly missed out on negotiating with other drivers who had signed contracts a few weeks earlier, like Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris. But I like the situation. It helps us because it avoids the moment where we need to tell the sport's most iconic driver that we want to stop. There's a reason why we only signed a 1+1 year contract. We're in a sport where cognitive sharpness is extremely important, and I believe everyone has a shelf life, so I need to look at the next generation. Sam, I don't know about you. These are very interesting comments.
Oh, don't like it. Don't like it.
You don't like it?
No. no, it feels...
I feel like there's a can been open and there's worms everywhere.
Oh, honestly. God, I can't... The worms! I'm covered in worms!
Do you remember Worms, the game?
Yeah, I love it, mate. Absolutely love it. I still got it on the PC. Absolutely love it. Honestly. 1v1 me at worms. Toto. Yeah, no, don't like this. I hate it. Actually, this reeks of a man that's been caught out and has felt the need for some reason to go, oh, I'll jump on a bit of a bandwagon. Why the need to tarnish the relationship? Why the need to come out and say anything at all? You know, you're disrespecting the most successful man in Formula One. You've had a generational partnership. People will remember Hamilton and Mercedes as they remember Schumacher and Ferrari. You know, it is that iconic. It will go down in history for decades to come. No one was expecting Toto Wolff to say anything. No one thought badly of Toto Wolff because of this. And yet he's come out here and absolutely slated Lewis Hamilton's timing, decision making. Firstly, Lewis Hamilton was exactly right. You're not competitive. You haven't been competitive for years. You have not improved. If anything, you've gotten worse, which is quite impressive. And Ferrari are winning races on the regular. He's a champion. He's a winner. He's successful. He's going after that for his final 2 years. You signed the 1+1 deal, so you clearly thought there was at least a good amount of cognitive sharpness available to Lewis Hamilton, that he's got at least another year in his locker, and you weren't going to bing him off halfway through his contract. Don't give me that tut. So it just feels like he's got his back up. And the story of Carlos Sainz Sr. running off to Toto Wolff to try and tell him, so maybe Carlos Jr. could get a drive while Toto just goes, I could have negotiated with Charles, is one of the funniest interactions that I've seen between kind of driver and family. And the shot of Carlos Sr.'s face and Carlos Jr.'s face and Toto in the middle, and he looks so defeated. Priceless. Brilliant shot. So, yeah, don't know why you tried to put Lewis Hamilton in the mud. Don't think it's very becoming of you. Don't think you had to really open your mouth at all, if I'm totally honest. I think you'll probably lose a few friends in the public eye because of this one.
Do you think they're fair comments, Harry?
They're spicy. Right. The he's not wrong on the cognitive.
It's a fair point.
Cognitive sharpness is a random phrase to use, but fine. Could just say reflexes, Toto. But
it's very, very LinkedIn, isn't it?
LinkedIn,
so
reeks of LinkedIn. I've got a great LinkedIn anecdote to tell you both off air. But
I can't wait for
they
this.
were breaking.
Yeah.
Let's end the show now.
But sorry. Anyway, but yeah, he's not wrong on that front, and it's maybe, you know, Mercedes did the same thing, and I know they're not in the same areas of performance, but Mercedes did exactly the same thing to the other 7-time world champion, Michael Schumacher. They didn't. I'm not saying Schumacher was looking to carry on anyway after his Mercedes stint, but he'd had 3 uncompetitive years. He wasn't as good as he was when he was at Ferrari. That was clear, and they didn't sign him, and they signed one Lewis Hamilton instead. And now I'm not saying that was going to happen immediately, but I don't think Toto's wrong to say they were looking at their options, hence the 1+1. It does feel like he was a little bit blindsided, and we said this before, blindsided by the way Hamilton announced it, and perhaps he felt the way that he did it was not, given the relationship they've had and the success they've had, has not been kind to Mercedes. But in the same way that Toto it's a dog-eat-dog world, F1, and the same way that Toto's saying he's looking after himself looking after Mercedes' interests with the 1+1 deal, Hamilton was looking after himself by signing for Ferrari. It's just the way it is, and I think Toto does understand that, and maybe that's lost in translation by what he's saying. But yeah, they're punchy comments. I don't know whether he meant them to come through quite so punchy.
Well, on that, I mean, these comments came from and I forget the name eludes me, but it's in a book about Mercedes, like the inside Mercedes.
So yes, they brought out a new book, haven't they?
Well, I was going to say, because I've seen some comments similar made by Hit on a trailer for another podcast by another podcaster called Jake, and Toto's on it. And I've seen a couple of similar comments he said there. So it's not like he said this once and has forgotten about it. He sort of doubled down.
Matt Wyman inside Mercedes F1 Live in the fast lane. If you want
so in theory, I mean, if someone didn't like him or someone had pointed out that they might not read as you want them to, Toto, like that could have been edited out or changed. You've got to think that he meant what he said and wanted it to be there. Yeah.
So, like I said, I don't think he's wrong. I think the way he said it is a bit punchy, but overall, I don't think his points are wrong. And again, Hamilton, yes, he's made the right call in terms of competitiveness versus Ferrari this year. But again, I see Toto's point. Why didn't he wait for at least to see? I'm not saying Hamilton was wrong here. He's made the right call, but why didn't he wait to see that? Again, I think that's just part of being blindsided by it. So I don't think it's a breakdown of relations between them, but maybe they won't hang out as much as they used to. I don't know how much they used to anyway, but
I love the audacity that he thinks he could get Norris or Leclerc to replace him. Like, you see what that team's been for the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, but you could.
Yeah,
I think you could have done.
Remember when it happened though?
Yeah, I still don't think they were realistically on the cards. I've got to be honest with you.
But I mean, they were coming off like beating McLaren and Ferrari in the constructors the year before.
Yeah, barely. It wasn't actually that.
They still won. Like they still beat them.
But also at the point that Hamilton left, they'd only had 2 bad years, and before that they won 8 championships.
True. Yeah, fair point. It swings and roundabouts to it. I just think these are comments you can keep to yourself. I'm surprised he said them publicly.
I think this is a man trying to find the positive in a negative situation. I don't quite buy the "I like this situation" quote. I don't buy it at all. I don't blame him for looking at it this way and at least like publicly, I don't know, putting himself across this way, because there's nothing he can do at this stage. There's not much point him moping about it and so I wish he'd stay, like, because he's gone. Like, that's a done deal. Nothing's changing at this point. But I have to say, I'm not convinced this is the way he wanted it to go down. I think in Toto's mind, like the way he was envisaging this was because George Russell's contract is up at the end of 2025 as well. And that's the same point that Lewis Hamilton's contract would have been up. I think his ideal situation was going to be Antonelli in Williams for a year next year. And then maybe summer of next year, he's got nothing committed for 2026. He can go, right, Antonelli, Russell, Hamilton, I need 2 of them. And he could go... He could look at Antonelli and see how he'd performed in those first 6 months at Williams. He could look at Hamilton and whether his cognitive sharpness had regressed at all. He could look at George Russell and see if he was still competing with Lewis Hamilton or had maybe surpassed him. And then he's able to make like the best judgment call. Like he can go, right, actually, Hamilton has regressed a bit. Let's go with Russell and Antonelli. Or Antonelli hasn't done very well in the first 6 months at Williams. Let's keep with Hamilton and Russell. And I think this is kind of taken the option away from him and the decision has been made for him. And I know he says it's avoided a conversation. I honestly believe that even if it is a difficult conversation, it's one that Toto would rather have than the decision be made for him, as is what's happened here. So I don't quite buy it. The other thing that I wanted to pick up on as part of this, Sam, was this whole 1+1 deal. So when both Hamilton and Russell's contract extensions were announced, they were announced at exactly the same time, and it was just multi-year extension. Here, Toto Wolff is making a point that it was 1+1, and obviously the +1 would have been 2025. Are you buying that? Like, is that in there for Toto's benefit and Mercedes' benefit, or was it in there for Hamilton's benefit? Because obviously he's the one that's used it.
Yeah, it's a different clause for each driver, I suppose. I imagine they have had those meetings separately. Different agents would have been involved. It's not like Lewis and George are going to be texting each other notes about what's going into each contract. So for George Russell, I very much think that this was a Bit of both. George Russell was still on the up. He's definitely proving himself at this point. Obviously, he's more than good enough now. But Ben, you brought it up a few times on the show. If Antonelli's amazing and someone like Max Verstappen becomes free, does this allow Mercedes to turn around and go, sorry, George, you're good, but you ain't 10 out of 10 world-class good, and you might not be the next Lewis Hamilton coming through the ranks good. So, sorry, you're the third place in what's a very good lineup. There's that option. I imagine George Russell, after seeing the form of everything that was going through, I don't know how wed he is to Mercedes for his entire career. I don't know if he is Charles Leclerc, head over heels, smitten for Ferrari, do whatever you want to me, I'll keep coming back, levels of obsessed with his team. I think George Russell wants to win. Lewis Hamilton, on the other hand, keeps been around the block a bit, isn't he? He kind of knows what he's doing at this point, and he's read teams' performance before. He's understood the development of how teams are moving. He moved away from McLaren at quite an optimal point, joined Mercedes at a very optimal point. Has he done it again? I do wonder if he's looked at the previous form, he's looked at his stage in his career, and he's gone, now or never, really. Something I want to do. I want to win again. I want to drive for Ferrari. I've got to make it happen. Put a 1+1 in, and I'm sure Mercedes have gone, yeah, Lewis Hamilton, we'll take it. But there's not to say that Toto Wolff, in the back of his mind, hasn't gone, is he going to be 40 while he's with us? He might literally just not have it in him anymore. There is every chance. So it benefits both, but you're right. It's very intriguing that he's made it very explicit right now that it's a 1+1, which I think he's just tried to allow it to look like he's in control. I think that's the reason why he's brought it up. I don't think it matters whether it was always a multi-year 1+1, but the reason he's brought it up now is to show that he had some deeper control of the situation.
Harry, do you buy that it was Mercedes driving the fact that it was a 1+1 deal rather than Lewis?
I think they both thought they were driving the deal because it suits both of them. Hamilton gets what he wants in terms of he gets an exit clause and can go somewhere else, which he's done. Mercedes are doing it because Toto thinks he's just keeping his options open. I think it was mutually beneficial for both of these parties to have this 1+1, and maybe they both thought they were being smart. Hamilton's one in terms of being the one who's activated it first, but in terms of actually putting it in there, both teams, Team Hamilton and Team Mercedes, probably got a few smart lawyers behind them. I'd hazard a guess, and I don't think they'd put something in there if either of them didn't want it. Sorry. So yeah, in terms of how it's worked out, Toto's lost out, but the reason for it being there in the first place, I think both parties wanted it.
I am a little bit less convinced this is from Mercedes' side. And I don't like to come out and call Toto Wolff dishonest because maybe he's telling the truth. And clearly both sides have accepted this. I find it more difficult to believe that Mercedes were the ones at least driving this being a 1+1 rather than a 2-year deal. And I appreciate the whole comment about drivers having a shelf life. It's 100% true. But at the time this contract was agreed and finalized, Fernando Alonso was older at that point than what Lewis Hamilton would have been will be at the end of 2025. So, and I know that it's not the same for all drivers and that some drivers will drop off sooner than others. I completely appreciate that. But I think you could look at what Alonso was doing at that point in F1, middle of 2023, when he was picking up a lot of podiums. And I think you could comfortably say Hamilton will probably still be at that level in 2 years' time as well. But bear in mind that if you had that much of a concern about Lewis Hamilton and his regression, in 2022, he had a very difficult year. He bounced back in 2023. He had a very good 2023. Like, if it had continued on from when Russell had beaten him in 22, I would have understood the 1+1 deal a bit more. But I think based on how he bounced back, I think Mercedes would have been looking for a 2-year deal rather than what has actually happened here, which is the option of a second year. And I know, Harry, you mentioned like the Schumacher comparison, and I think it's valid to bring that up. On the other hand, Lewis Hamilton in 2024 is a long way clear of Schumacher in 2012, in my eye. Schumacher still had something about him at that point. The Monaco pole lap is a great example. But I still think Hamilton is operating, even I don't think he's had a great year, but last year was brilliant, and I still think he's operating at a high level. So I feel like that 1+1 deal that Lewis has decided to utilize was probably driven more by him.
I think last piece for me, two bits of news came out quite interestingly around the same time as this from a Ferrari point of view. One, Big Fred left Toto Wolff on red when Toto found out initially that this might be happening. I think he texted him saying, "Have you taken my driver?" And Frank Versergus didn't reply to him, which I think is hilarious.
He was too busy laughing.
Too busy starting his own ice cream shop, because apparently that's his dream job. And I love the gif of him laughing his head off on the pit wall when he sees it come up on the screen. It's so Frank Versergus. And secondly, they've given him Enzo Ferrari's house to stay at as his base in Maranello, which only, of course, Michael Schumacher got the privilege of having. So there's clearly a lot of admiration coming from Ferrari's side, and it kind of makes you understand why he took the jump.
Caveat that with allegedly before Tifosi come after us.
It's happened. I saw Lewis moving his piano.
Yeah, him and Roscoe are moving in.
Yeah, Roscoe's got a doghouse outside, a little red one.
Sam's there with the delivery van with a fake mustache on, even though you don't need it. Just
I got on top of my real one.
Yes, yeah.
Doing my best Charles Leclerc accent.
I work for Shred It, bro. No, God, no. Please, never again. Right, let's take our second break on this episode. On the other side, we've got Alpine and Mercedes news. Before we jump into the next topic, Sam, if people love what we do here at Late Breaking and they'd like to receive some more content, do you know where someone could go?
Oh, I think I do, actually, Dan. It's a great question.
Only dogs could hear that. That was...
Yeah, just go on your little phone or your desktop and you can scroll down there. You see some links. One of those goes to Patreon. Now, Patreon is a place where we provide paid-for content. That paid-for content is top quality. Everything ad-free. 2 extra episodes, standard ones like this. You'll also get a classic race review. The vote's going on now in Patreon yourself, and you can get involved in voting for it. You get a beer we're breaking. We'll let you in a little secret. We're recording it straight after this episode. Beer's at the ready, gentlemen.
In the fridge, chilling.
I've actually got wine, but...
Yeah, actually, you've got Ribena.
I so do. YouTube getting a treat there with the Ribena. I am rich in vitamin C, as it says. Anyway, you get a beer breaking. You get power rankings after every single Grand Prix. If you're in the top tier, you get loads of extra benefits, such as a birthday shout out as well. And let me tell you, the people that subscribe to Patreon help out this show enormously. If you don't fancy it, you can't afford it, something you want to wait for, sure, we massively appreciate you just listening anyway. It means the world. But give it a little go. You can always cancel it at the end of the month if you don't fancy it. You get the backlog of all the content we've ever made when you subscribe as well. So thanks for everyone that does it. And thanks to you if you even consider it.
And remember, we like the Patreon people more than the rest of you.
And that's a Harry Eag only message.
Moving on to some news that came out today as we're recording this, which is that Alpine has secured a deal with Mercedes to run the German manufacturer's power unit from 2026 until at least the end of 2030. The deal also involves taking a supply of their gearbox from the start of 2026, though there are sources saying that Alpine are planning on producing their own gearbox in-house at Enstone from 2027. But at least the power unit side of things, 2026 through to the end of 2030. Harry, we've obviously touched on this a couple of times on the podcast. It was expected that it would be Mercedes filling in this void for Alpine, but it's been announced. I guess there's no surprise, but your reaction to the news?
Yeah, no surprise, because they've already announced they're not going to make their own engines, and Mercedes were the obvious option. But once again, why have Alpine done this? Also,
they've waited after their best result of the year to announce it.
I was going to say something about the fact that they didn't know how to react, so they were like, "Oh, well, we'll announce we're not using our own engines now." Yeah, the using the Mercedes engines and gearboxes makes sense. Why would they then try and make their own gearbox if that's what they're claiming?
This company,
they're going to install it upside down, aren't they?
What's the point? What is if you're trying to save money? I don't know what your reasoning is. What's the point in investing in trying to make your own gearbox for an engine that you don't make yourself anymore? It just makes no sense to me. So that in itself is stupid, but it just reeks of being sold, doesn't it? Makes them very sellable.
The chop shop is in place.
I think Big Flav has got his for sale sign out.
So gross.
Do you think the length of the deal helps the sell process go through? Because anyone obviously looking to buy Alpine, that's kind of secure.
Have some engines to go with and some gearboxes. Exactly. I think it does, and it's a shame. But I mean, at least they might get bought out by someone serious and not Alpine, because they are the least serious team in this sport.
Alpine buys out Alpine.
Otmar comes back and buys out Alpine.
That's Renault.
Yeah, and we go back. We go again.
Benetton.
History repeats itself.
Tolman. Yeah, we start again. It's the 80s again.
Derek Warwick comes out of retirement to race for.
Yay!
So yeah, that seems like the way it's going, and it's almost like I'd rather just get on with it now. Like, fine, if you're going to do this, let's sell up, become a proper team, whatever you may be, and let's do this properly. Rather, I know Alpine did well in the last race, and congrats to them, but for goodness sake.
Sam, your reaction to the news?
Oh, it's just so demotivating, just so unexciting. Just don't care. Like, it feels like we're in a world of Formula One where so many Formula One teams are taking themselves seriously. Aston Martin are spending the big bucks to bringing big names and try and make sure they've got their own engine supplier, and Honda now moving to them. Red Bull bringing Ford. McLaren are stepping up. Ferrari signed Lewis Hamilton. Mercedes are still going. Audi are coming into the sport. Even if they might be selling some shares to Qatar, which I think we're going to get onto maybe Sunday, they're still here to really become an F1 team. Williams look like they're reinvesting every part of them to really regrow themselves into the team they once before. Even Haas look like they're actually making a proper effort of it. Right?
Toyota are involved.
Toyota have turned up. I'm impressed by that sign. That's a great move. They've actually got a race simulator. But Alpine can't even get a bloody gearbox, and then they can apparently. I just don't care. It just seems like they're not taking themselves seriously. It just feels like they don't know what to do with themselves. Harry's right. It reeks of being sold. It reeks of just putting in the minimal amount of effort, open as many doors. Someone come in, take over, please. I'm
really sorry to interrupt this, but I just remembered something that Briatore said. And I don't know if the translation is fantastic, but at least in English, they've got rid of a few hundred people, obviously, this year at Alpine. And Briatore referred to it as spring cleaning.
Literally, open the doors, open the windows, bringing a Mercedes engine for some reason.
Flavio in a penny with a Hoover.
Little Mercedes pingy.
What are you doing there? Get out. Go on.
Off you go, little pest. Get out of my home. Yeah, sorry. I just don't care. Sell up. Get someone in who's actually serious and takes it seriously. This team is a joke.
I mean, to use a phrase that I coined not that long ago, all the F1 teams are chipping away at trying to be serious, and Alpine are unchipping.
They actually are, which is impressive. In all honesty, I don't have too much to add on top of what both of you have said, and also what I've said in the past. It's incredibly saddening that we have got a factory team willingly not being a factory team anymore. The gearbox thing, as you said, Harry, is confusing, but if you're looking for logic when it comes to Alpine decisions, then that's on us at this point. I think we're fully aware of what they are. And yeah, the deal probably does help things if they do want to sell up. Like, whoever is considering investing doesn't need to worry about that for at least 5 years, if not more. I mean, the statement said until at least the end of 2030. It wasn't putting like we'll go back to our own engines by 2031. There was no indication of that whatsoever. I don't know how this aligns with their road car strategy whatsoever, and trying to break into the US market by displaying another engine on a global scale. Like, there's got to be some reason they're doing it, but I can't find it. So yeah,
cute as well. The road cars are adorable. I'd have one if they want to give it to me.
They're not going to be so cute when they're trying to stuff a B8 Mercedes engine in it.
Someone put a B8 motor in an Alpine and bring it here. I'm going.
Also, fair play to Mercedes, because they've realized this year is going to be quite embarrassing for them when another Mercedes power units car in McLaren defeats them for the Constructors Championship. So they're just helping their future odds by saying, we've got at least one team guaranteed to lose to us.
It's the only reason they want it.
I respect that a lot. Just one other point, actually, on this. Alpine and Cadillac have somewhat been rumoured to be together. Obviously, Cadillac would like to come into Formula One as a constructor alongside the General Motors entry. Whether that's, alongside the Andretti entry, whether that still happens remains to be seen. Do you think, Sam, this is a bit of a blow to Cadillac if they were looking at this as a potential customer team in the future?
Yeah, I think so. Considering that obviously Cadillac were going to be an engine supplier to Global, as we now refer to them, famously, Andretti, for those who maybe are new to the show and don't understand an inside joke. And that hasn't really gone to plan, as we know. There's still some discussions legally going on in the background of all that. We've not heard anything for a while, but it looks as though Andretti's entrance into the sport it's not imminent, and therefore Cadillac will be looking for another way in. Now, I think the damning moment for them is the fact that the engine supplier of Mercedes has been signed on for so many years. If anything, they would have liked everything else to be in order, and then to go, we could do the engine bit. We're good at that bit. Don't need to worry about Mercedes. We'll take it on. I understand why Alpine haven't gone out and tried to form a brand new relationship with an outside supplier. It's risky. It might fall through. They might not be able to perform, and the engine could be even worse than what they're already making themselves. It's all possible. But I imagine they're looking at this and going, that was probably our door in if the Andretti door falls through. And now it looks very unlikely that unless they want to bin off a very expensive Mercedes contract early, they're not going to be getting in that route anytime soon.
Any thoughts on that, Harry?
If Alpine was serious, do that deal. Do that deal.
It's a big if, sir.
Oh, if they're serious. Yeah. And I think it just proves the point that they're just not serious about doing this properly. It is a blow to Cadillac, for sure. But the way F1 is, you never know when an opportunity may open up. Maybe McLaren will decide they don't want to do this anymore with the Mercedes engine and go for McLaren Cadillac, but who knows? Yeah, it's a blow to them, but, you know, opportunities arise all the time in F1.
McLaren Cadillac sounds hella cool, by the way.
McLaren.
Oh my God, that's so... Zach Brown is writing up a marketing proposal right now.
He's a big fan of this show, and he'll be listening along. He'd have just heard that, and he's getting it going. That is a...
Hi, Zach. If you'd like to invest, we are open to conversations.
He's been a fan ever since we called him Marketing Man.
The greatest superhero the world has ever seen.
He's been a fan ever since we donned him the Renault man.
Renault.
He knows what you're talking about.
Good stuff. Let's move on to the second bit of news from today that we'll discuss. The second of 27 things that were announced today, which is the FIA confirming that Niels Wittich has stepped down from his position. Has quotation marks stepped down from his position as F1 race director to pursue new opportunities. Niels has fulfilled his numerous responsibilities as race director with professionalism and dedication. We thank him for his commitment and we wish him for the best for the future. So this is in effect from now. So Las Vegas Grand Prix, next race, there is going to be a change. The current Formula 2 and Formula 3 race director, Rui Marquez, is stepping up to take his position, at least in the interim. I don't know if that's going to be long-term going into next season. The reason for the quotation marks is that there are rumblings that Niels Wittich did not step away, and he was instead fired. So that's interesting. Sam, before we started recording, you said you had some interesting theories about this.
Yeah, I was doing some reading. Shock, I know. And
dangerous.
Very. And
first person from St Austell that can read.
That's a very inside joke. Thank God no one from there listens.
They do, but anyway.
It's all right. They can't do that either.
I don't know how to use a mobile phone. It's okay because we're dunking on ourselves. It's fine.
Self-burn.
Yeah.
Can't
come for me if I burn myself. Anyway, sorry, right. Race director. Yeah, I went back a little bit. Obviously, I feel like the problem Formula One has had with race directors goes back to when we unfortunately lost Charlie Whiting very suddenly in 2019. And I think that man knew more about Formula One than Formula One itself. You know, every rule, every regulation. He did that job for what, 3 decades. He was there and respected by every single person. And what Charlie said goes, basically. And then we suddenly lost him. And it was very, very sad for all of the motorsport community. And then we got Michael Massey. Now, Michael Massey was that race director famously for a couple of years, and you'll be aware of the famous line. I'm sure even if you're very new to the sport, you maybe watch Drive to Survive, you'll know the, "No, Mikey, no, it's so not right." This is a motorsport race, Toto. And the fact that, of course, Toto tried to email Michael Massey halfway through a Grand Prix at one point to get his attention, famously ends up leaving the role due to a lot of controversy in the championship going Max Verstappen's way at the final Grand Prix. At that point,
what happened?
I'm not going to get into that right now.
I don't remember any controversy. You're going to have to expand on this.
Obviously, the flashing of the race in my mind right now is horrible. At that point, we were suddenly appointed with 2 race directors at the same time. Of course, we have the wonderful gentleman who has stepped aside, but we also had... stepped aside, I say. We also have Freitas, right, who came in alongside him. Now, a trend is starting to appear because Freitas suddenly disappeared after the Japanese Grand Prix of 2022. During that Grand Prix, you'll remember that the weather was shocking, absolutely awful, and a car was being cleared off the track by a digger pickup truck, and the safety car could not be seen properly. Pierre Gasly was going around the racetrack at racing speed and passes this digger right off the side of the track. It caused outbursts of worry, of anger among the Formula One fan group. And suddenly, Freitas was gone. He was not seen again at that point. And at that point, Wittich took over on his own. Now, what I think has happened here is I think Wittich is Ben Sulayem's sacrificial lamb. I think Wittich has been the one that is driving face-to-face with the drivers, and the rules here, the piercings rule, the jewellery rule, the swearing rule, I think Ben Sulayem has been trying to provide these changes, and Wittich is the man that's been trying to push them forward. Now, we discussed last week the GEPA. They came out with that statement. Yes, I said GEPA. That was a legal... They came out with that statement last week, of course, that they feel that the rules were unfair and ridiculous, and the fines, they didn't know where they were going, and there was inconsistencies, and George Russell basically put a big old dunk on them, rightly so. Now, I think here, this is almost a behind-the-scenes Ben Sulayem cut one off to try and make peace with the drivers to go, there will be changes. We're going to have some changes. Essentially trying to use a scapegoat and make sure that he is going to come out of this unscathed, and to almost give a gesture to the GPDA as a, look, we've made changes. Things are going to change now. And this gives him a free excuse to make those changes. So I appreciate that Wittich has said, I haven't stepped down. They fired me for something that I was doing my job for. I was dealing with the rules that I was given. And I think that's what's happened. I think this is behind closed doors. He is being axed as an excuse to mend the relationship between Ben Sulayem at the FIA and the GPDA.
What do you think, Harry?
I think he was axed because he was crap at his job.
I mean, sure.
Did you watch Brazil? It was terrible. Sorry, not the race.
I might throw a yellow flag now.
No, not yet. No.
Safety car.
Give me another 30 seconds. Another 30 seconds.
You mentioned Dear Charlie Whiting. It baffles me that Charlie Whiting did he did F1 and F2 and F3. He did all of it. He just ran the show. And some of the stuff that happens nowadays would have Charlie Whiting rolling. He'd be absolutely fuming. And I think you mentioned all the other people that have been in the role since his untimely passing. Shows A, what a good job he did, but also B, what a bad job or not great job some of these race directors are doing. Michael Massey, in his defense, I don't remember being sort of reckless with safety so much, just a bit off with the way races were run.
He wanted to be the show, I think.
The show.
Turkey was the one.
Yeah.
There was one safety incident at Turkey. I think that was under Massey. I think.
Right?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I think you're probably right.
Yeah. Whereas I think more recently, Sam, you referenced the Pierre Gasly incident in Suzuka in 22. Brazil this year wasn't great, and we've had a few near misses. I just think I think they've just not been up to the task. But Brazil this year there were some horrendous calls in terms of timings of safety car. I know the Stroll incident on the formation lap with Norris going off again with doing another formation lap. But again, that could have just been made entirely clearer by the race director and call it and tell all the teams. He had so much time to call that, and instead we got most of the field going off with Lance Stroll stood at the edge of the gravel trap with the digger in the gravel trap as well. And it just, I think maybe this was the final straw for him. It just baffles me that I know it cannot be an easy job to do, but it baffles me when they've got so much information up in race control, like an unreal amount. You two have been to the one in Kota, you and Kirsty. They've got a crap load of TV screens in there, don't they? A load.
Huge amount.
Way more than we get at home, obviously. But if we can see a situation needs to be called instantly when we're sat at home, they should be able to make the same decision. And I think they need.
Are they scared of going the other way with it? Like calling things too early, like calling a red flag where it's not needed. Like, what's the reason? Is it incompetence or is it deliberate?
I don't know. And this is the thing. Sometimes they call, sometimes in practice sessions, they call red flags before the accidents finish happening. It's like it's almost instantaneous. So sometimes they're almost too over the top, or they're really on it, and then sometimes they're not. And even in Brazil, it was inconsistent because sometimes we'd have, whereas an obvious safety car, boom, it was a safety car straight away, which correct. Whereas we had these other incidences, the qualifying one with Sargent in the wall, where the red flag didn't come out until some drivers have finished their laps. It should just be instantaneous. It shouldn't be questionable. And I know we want there to be an element of compromise and balance, but Brazil showed there are still lessons to be learnt from the Bianchi crash all this years ago in Suzuka. I think we're still a way off from getting things right, because we were only another car into a barrier, into a gravel trap away from a bad moment happening. So I think that's why he's gone. But the biggest issue they got is I know they've got the F2 and F3 person doing it for the last few races, but who do they replace him with? Also, they must have thought it was really bad because they got rid of him with only 3 races left, which is quite an odd call.
That makes me, because I agree, that's the one thing that's really odd. And I'm leaning towards it being something along the lines of them behind the scenes saying that the end of the year they're going to make a switch, and Niels Wittich turning around and going, all right, I'm just not going to bother with the last 3 then, and then having to come up with this. I don't really know. I tend to lean towards your side of things, Harry, on why this has happened. And I think you're both right to raise Charlie Whiting, because I think this is where it all stems from, in that if you weren't a fan when Charlie Whiting passed away, you've both done a good job of illustrating how much he did, to the point where there have been multiple discussions since then about how it can't be one person doing what Charlie Whiting used to do. It needs to be 2 people, it needs to be 3 people. But Charlie Whiting's passing was so sudden. Like, it was on the eve of the start of a season. It was the Australian Grand Prix was happening the next weekend. And I don't think there was ever really, because Charlie Whiting controlled so much, there was never really a transition, nothing like a handover. Nothing was in place as to what happens when Charlie retires, or in this case, obviously passes away. Like, who does what? And I don't think they've ever really answered that question, even though we're years on from that. We had the Michael Massey years where, for various reasons, it didn't work. They then, as you said, Sam, made the decision to put 2 people in the role. They were very adamant at the time, like, that it was the right thing to do to have multiple people in the role rather than 1. And then Niels Wittich does it solo, and it doesn't seem as if they even made an attempt to put a second person alongside him in the role. And now we're in a position where, Rui Marquez will step up and do it. And I can't really speak to him and whether he'll do a good or a bad job, but I lean towards it being a case of it doesn't really matter who does it. I think the FIA just needs to take a step back and think about what does the role, what does the role entail? Like, what do we want that role to involve? What should they oversee? What should the decision-making process be? It applies for the stewards as well, but I think they just could do with spending some time between the end of the season and the beginning of next season, not just thinking about who it should be, but really about the role itself, because I can't avoid thinking that this will keep happening until they have that sort of a conversation with themselves.
I also think redoing the rules so they're clearer, more able to be enforced, right? Obviously, the safety stuff is paramount, but simplicity in how you govern that will surely lead to a more understandable use of the rule set anyway. And clearly, it's overly complex with the amount of issues that have been brought up. So fingers crossed we get some changes in the new year.
Final break on today's episode. On the other side, we're playing Show Me the Options. Welcome back, everyone. It's time for Show Me the Options.
Show me my options! Oh, so good.
Slaps. Show me the options. 6 questions in front of me. Sam and Harry will take it in turns, picking a number, and they have a choice to make. They can either try and answer the question that I give them straight away, in which case, if they get it right, they'll get 2 points. But if they'd like a little bit more help, all they need to do is say, show me the options, at which point I'll give them 3 multiple choice options. If they then get it right, they get 1 point. And we'll start today with Harry. What number would you like?
Number 4, please.
Number 4?
You're going to forget.
That is rogue.
You're definitely going to forget.
I always forget, so I might as well just forget in some sort of style.
Well, forgetting isn't a great idea with this question because we're going quite far back. In fact, we're going all the way back to the first ever Grand Prix. Who won the first ever F1 World Championship Grand Prix?
You can do it.
Show me my options.
Way! Holding a right bigger button.
Your options are Fangio, Surtees, and Farina.
It's the easiest options in the world. Come on.
Farina?
You are right, sir. Well done. Which means you claim a point with those options being presented to you. Sam, what number?
I'll have a 1, please, Ben.
Have you switched? Are you actually like dressed up as each other or something?
Famously.
That's a very Harry answer.
Man, that means I will have a light bulb moment at some point in this game and get it right perfectly, surely. Please.
Good. Well, you should get this. Well, Sam would get this one right. I don't know, Harry, if you'll get this one right. But what was Eddie Irvine's final season in F1?
Did you know that he's held me as a baby?
Really? Tell us more.
Yes, 2 points.
I don't think Sam would get this right, actually. So I'm going to say, show me my options.
Hey!
Your options are 2000, 2002, and 2004.
Okay, I had 2000 in my mind, so I'm going to go 2000.
No, it is not
good.
2000.
See, Sam wouldn't have got that right. That's why I am Sam. Big reveal.
But you are 2 years out, not 4 years out. It's 2002.
Good.
Harry, back to you at 1-0.
Number 2, please.
Number 2. How many drivers won a race in 2018?
Count among your hands, pal.
1, 2, 3. 4. 6?
No.
Damn.
What?
Oh, no.
What rogue person won a Grand Prix?
No.
No, it's the other way around.
Bottas didn't win one, the bloody scrub.
That year.
Botties!
Which, as you could probably guess, the correct answer is
5.
5. This will really annoy you. Well, actually, it probably won't, Harry. I know you well enough that it won't annoy you that much. But your options would have been 2, 3, and 5. So
Probably would have worked it out from that.
I think so.
Never mind.
Never mind.
Sam, back to you.
6, please.
All the way to number 6. Who was Alain Prost's last teammate in F1?
Show me my options.
Way.
You've got Ayrton Senna,
No.
Eddie Cheever,
Sitting home.
and Damon Hill.
Just his name. Can't be mad at Eddie Cheever.
Eddie Cheever.
No, it's not Eddie Cheever.
I just wanted it to be him because of his name.
It's fair enough. Damon Hill.
Damon, go away. Damon
Oh, yeah, got him. Got him.
Wow.
Bloody hell, what a zinger that was.
I've got breaking news. Damon Hill's actually retired from his Sky Sports duties because of that insult.
I can't go on. It's too much.
I can't get up.
What hurt more than
Taking out my kneecaps.
Damon, go away. Got him.
Oh, man. Harry, back to you. This is a massively high-scoring game at this point. We're at 1-0 still.
Number 5?
5? Yeah, number 5. Where did Oscar Piastri claim his first career podium?
Oh, poop. Show me my options.
Hey.
Your options are Japan, Monaco, and Las Vegas.
I don't know. Japan.
I think it's like Gibraltar for a minute.
Japan. You said it very uncertainly, but you are correct. It is Japan.
Did he get a podium? Oh, yeah, they weren't good for. I forgot. Start 23 was terrible.
17th in the DNF. Come on.
Come on, my favourite stat.
Which means there's just one question left. Sam, what number would you like?
Harry, press the button, please.
Please hold.
I would like number
3.
Very good.
Number 3. How many times has Fernando Alonso finished in the top 3 in the championship?
Oh. Okay, you didn't see that curveball coming. I think at least twice.
Higher.
5 times. Oh, it's okay. I don't mind that. I've got that wrong.
Out of interest, your options would have been 4, 6, and 8. What would you have gone for?
5.
Yeah,
Still 5.
I'm still convinced it's 5.
I'm really annoyed that that's the one that was missing. That's quite irritating. I would have said 4.
You can feel better because you'd have got it wrong. It would have been 6.
Woo! Do you know what? Gone are the days where I used to thrash Harry at these games.
I've late year comeback. December is your month.
Sure. Go with that.
It does mean Harry wins this one by 2-0. Sam, don't you worry about that segment. We can forget all about that segment. I've got one that's far, far better for you. I bet you can't guess what it is.
I can't, mate. What is it?
I'll tell you then, because it is the greatest segment in all of Formula One. It is the
LB question of the week.
Beautiful. Question of the week. Obviously, Valtteri Bottas no longer going to be at Sauber for next year. And, well, we'd quite like him to join late braking. So our question was, what can we do to convince him to join late braking?
There were some stunning answers. I'm going to kick off with Not That Old, who said, give him a 2-year contract. It's all he wants. Well, I'd give him a lifelong contract if he wants to come on. What's next? You joining us. One of my favourite answers, if not my favourite answer of all time, all of LB podcasting, is from Myra, which said we should make a collaborative arse calendar.
She technically said ass.
Yeah.
Yes, but I'm English.
You're misrepresenting her.
There was a lot of
butts.
lot of butt content. And Eddie Barnett came in with just show cheeks, which is I had to scroll down to on my one, the hidden comments. There's so many.
I don't get
Honestly.
hidden comments.
But they're not bad. None of
Miss
them
out on the weekly Postman Fat reference if you go to the hidden comments, honestly.
No, they're just given to me normally.
Oh, well. That's sensitive eyes, apparently.
Yeah, apparently so. Sorry, Ben.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say one of them was Unlimited Pumpernickel in that from McGovern Philip.
Yes, that was a good one. A few from me. From Jess, Plan B, bikes, butts and beans, brackets, coffee.
Yes, Buffy.
Love that. Rob said, give him a green toaster as a joining present. We can't let him leave a green toaster and give him one in return. That's not how it works, but I appreciate the answer anyway. Uncle Timmy88 said 1 million jelly beans.
Why is that someone's Instagram name?
Uncle Tim.
I'm not sure. Maybe my favorite answer came from Twitter, actually, and it was from Noah, because this is an old school reference I really appreciated. Showing him Sam's apology video after he won in Turkey in 2021.
Oh, was that when I did a little song for him?
That was when you predicted to start the year that I think Bottas would never win another race in his career. And in fairness to you, that is the only one that he's won since you said it. But you were wrong, so you had to do an apology.
I quite liked the little song that I did for him. It was good. I want to go back to Nick here, who said, put moustaches on Up Miles 9 babies. Sure.
Harry did say...
Yeah.
So you were interested to know how someone would find a way to put that in there.
Well done. Well done, everyone. Ali says, Ali HR says, offer Sam up to be his own personal mullet fluffer.
I will graciously accept. Valtteri, let me know when you need my delicate fingers in your mullet.
There's nothing even wrong about that, but there is.
Also, sorry.
Go on, mate.
I was going to say, again, and Ben, I think you appreciate these as well. The ones that just answer the question. This is from Outrun the Lee, who just said, ask.
Oh,
it's a good answer.
It's a great answer. Caroline said, probably threatening him with a microwave that spins the wrong way, making everything colder.
Because that's how that works.
I was only disappointed to see that there were no answers about spaghetti dinner ladies this week.
That might still be the most ridiculous thing that we've had. Oh, Postman Fat sends him an invitation. It's so good.
And Jorge on Twitter said, just give him an LB mug. Which,
if he'd like one.
I mean, that could convince him, surely.
I love you, Valtteri. Please join the show.
Any final answers?
I've given loads.
Andrew, who said kick Harry off because he's never here anyway. Well, that's wrong because I'm here reading this out, Andrew. So
you've had him there.
He's down with Damon Hill.
Andrew, go away.
Another couple of kneecaps gone.
You hear them snapping.
And Blake came in with just give Homie a hug. That's what he wants, which is bleak. But I get it.
Respect that. That's a nice note to end question of the week on. It's very rare we end on a positive, so let's leave it there. Sam, at least for this episode, if you wouldn't mind getting us out of here.
Folks, please do join us again on the Sunday. We'll be talking for more news and more chit chat before we do eventually get back into the swing of normal F1 Grand Prix. Don't worry, it's only around the corner, folks. We'll be there. If you'd like to chat to us generally, you can come and join us in Discord. All three of us are in there, as well as nearly 3,000 other massive F1 fans from across the globe. Links in the description. Follow us on social media, Late Breaking F1. Watch this on YouTube, Late Breaking F1. And again, as we mentioned in the show, you can join us on Patreon. So thanks for the support. We will see you on Sunday. In the meantime, I've been Samuel Sage.
I've been Ben Hocking.
I've been McCladaglag.
It doesn't sound so good anymore, does it? I remember, keep breaking late.
McCladaglag.